Join our community by subscribing. Every click helps us share more stories like this one. The introduction. On an unseasonably warm evening in early October, a palpable tension hung in the air of the small town of Willow Creek. Wrapped in the embrace of oak trees and nestled beside a winding river, the hushed town appeared ordinary on the surface. Residents went about their routines, but as darkness swept over the streets, a creeping foreboding began to settle. Inside the modest dwelling of the Decker family, a celebration was taking place. Emily Decker's 16th birthday party had drawn together friends, laughter echoing within the home like sweet music. While the children reveled, their parents exchanged pleasantries in the kitchen, the afterglow of nostalgia bathing the air in warmth. The close-knit community's familiarity bred a sense of security, luring everyone into a false veil of peace. Conversing softly in the corner, glancing at the lingering cake and the stream of vibrant balloons, stood a figure cloaked in darkness, hardly noticeable, shrouded by shadows that lapped at the edges of the house. Minutes bled into one another as the guests remained blissfully ignorant of the menacing presence that plotted just beyond their realm of comfort. As the clock struck 10, signaling the end of the celebration, laughter dimmed to echoes, and reluctant farewells began. Emily, unaware of the ominous twist her birthday would soon take, wandered outside to gather her thoughts, the cool night air inviting her into solitude. The serenity of the moment belied the chaos that was about to unfold, shattering the pastoral calm forever and etching Willow Creek's name into the annals of dark history. The moment stretched, weighed heavier now, hovering on the precipice of the unimaginable. The victim. Emily Decker was the kind of girl who lit up a room with long chestnut hair cascading over her shoulders and a smile that could melt the coldest of hearts. She represented the quintessential teenager full of dreams, ambitions, and boundless potential. Friends often described her as warm-hearted and compassionate, someone who genuinely cared for others. Her leadership poured forth in her role as captain of the cheerleading squad. Yet she never lost sight of her humble beginnings. On any given day, Emily could be found volunteering at the local animal shelter or tutoring children at the community center. Enveloped in the small-town rhythm, family was her anchor. She had a close-knit bond with her single mother, Lorraine, who worked 2 jobs to provide for them after Emily's father passed away in a tragic car accident years prior. Lorraine had instilled in Emily values of kindness, perseverance, and the importance of community, forging a young woman ready to embrace the world. As Emily strolled through the familiar paths of her neighborhood that night, the soft glow of streetlights illuminated her thoughts. Her chatter about school and plans for the future was silenced by the rush of wind. Those moments of solitude were infrequent. She generally surrounded herself with friends, basking in the connectedness of her circle. Yet, the stillness bore a weight she could not identify, an instinct unfurling at the base of her spine urging her to pay attention. Just as the warmth of the birthday festivities faded into memory, a chill crept across the street, hinting at an underlying danger, one lurking in the shadow. She turned, half expecting to see a friend coming to join her. But the darkness swallowed the light, and she realized the night was not as innocent as it appeared. The clock ticked forward, the evening unwinding into a tragedy that would envelop Willow Creek in sorrow, a loss unimaginable to those who knew her. The crime scene. The following morning, sunlight splashed across the town of Willow Creek, igniting it in a golden hue. Despite the picturesque dawn, An unsettling silence enveloped the community, interrupted only by the distant murmurs of sirens. Behind the Decker home, police cars lined the street, their lights casting conflicting hues across the porch, where party remnants lay scattered, a glimmering reminder of lost innocence. At the far edge of the backyard, in a small thicket of foliage, investigators hunched rhythmically, their movements precise and calculated. "This is where we found her," a detective remarked solemnly, gesturing to a patch of disturbed earth. Emily was discovered, cold and still, just beyond the boundary of her family's laughter, a chaotic contrast to the scene that had unfolded only hours earlier. The horror of the situation felt palpable as officers crouched down, meticulously examining each subtle detail. The gathered crowd was slow to swell, each resident unsure of how to process the tragedy that was unraveling before them. Whispers snaked through the assembly, the tension thick enough to cut. Friends were reeling with disbelief, their hearts heavy with grief. A mother's wail echoed moments later, shattering the scarce stillness. Lorraine had arrived, standing frozen as the realization washed over her mother's worst nightmare laid bare among the police tape. The sun shone cruelly, lighting the unthinkable as detectives initiated their routine. They began photographing the scene, capturing the elements that might later construct a narrative to explain such brutality. An officer took note of a broken tree branch, strewn carelessly near Emily's body, a striking juxtaposition against the delicate pink dress she had worn to celebrate her sweet 16. A bloodied handkerchief lay pressed against the soft soil, almost hidden beneath a twisted vine. The evidence was subtle yet damning, hinting at violence that eluded comprehension. It wasn't merely a murder. It felt like a darkness that had coiled itself tightly around the seemingly idyllic town, coiling tighter still with every passing moment. No longer the sheltered Willow Creek of their memories. Something sinister had taken root, endangering the very fabric of their existence. The early investigation, as the sun climbed higher, casting long shadows across the unfolding crime scene, the atmosphere thickened with urgency. The investigatory team mobilized, each officer absorbed in their assigned tasks. They interviewed early witness neighbors drawn by commotion and the sound of sirens and began sketching a timeline that traced Emily's final hours. Piecing together events, they sought anyone who might have seen or heard something suspicious amidst the celebration. Detective Sarah Mitchell, a seasoned investigator with over a decade of experience, stood at the forefront of the effort. Her reputation for solving cases where others could not preceded her. Yet today, she felt the weight of something heavier than usual. A teenage girl, a birthday shattered. This was not a case to be taken lightly. Emily's life had intertwined with the community's heart. Each name they encountered in their inquiries hinted at a connection that needed untangling. In the living room of the Decker home, friends gathered, their faces pale, confused, and hollowed by trauma. Detectives moved quietly among them, carefully asking questions that pressed harder against fragile boundaries. Did anyone notice anything out of place last night? Any unfamiliar faces? One officer asked gently, eliciting nothing but weak shakes of heads. To them, the laughter still rang like a distant echo, indistinguishable from the haunting memories that began to haunt their minds. Everyone loved Emily, Sarah noted as she took mental notes. But someone must have wanted to harm her. It was a grim reminder that beneath the small-town charm lay secrets, perhaps darker than they could imagine. Exiting the Decker household, Sarah paused at the threshold, observing the scene anew. The broken party vibe lingered like a shroud over Willow Creek. With every moment that passed, the spiraling question loomed larger. Who would commit such an attack against such a vibrant soul? Fresh fear crept into the hearts of the townsfolk, their peace shattered, replaced by insecurity that clung to them like the autumn chill invading the air. The sense of urgency escalated, fueled by an unsettling thought. The evidence was not only on the ground, but also woven through the fabric of the community, where no one wanted to acknowledge that danger might lurk a little too close to home. The clock was ticking. The race to find Emily's killer had officially begun, and with it, the quest for answers became an indelible part of Willow Creek's story. The dead ends. Days melted into nights within the confines of Willow Creek, the locals mired in a relentless storm of grief and fear. As investigations churned onward, the excitement of the early days gave way to a creeping frustration. Detective Sarah Mitchell found herself grappling with dead ends, their weight pressing heavily on her resolve. Lines drawn between leads soon crumbled to dust, promising connections that quickly dissolved with further inquiry. Witness interviews yielded little substance. The friend's eyes rimmed with tears could only recount fragments of the night. Vague memories flooded with the lightness of celebration, hollowed by the insufferable weight of loss. No one had seen anyone unusual near the Decker home. There were no unfamiliar vehicles parked on the street. As the sunlight faded into each evening, the chilling realization dawned. The answers they sought remained firmly out of reach. Sarah combed through backgrounds, searching for misfits, individuals with struggles that could lead them to lash out in violence. Every name she probed offered scant merit, the usual miscreants occupying the attention of local law enforcement: the petty thieves, the drunks, the domestic disputants, seemed capable of the horrifying crime that snuffed out young life. Frustrated but undeterred, Sarah turned her attention to social media. Emily's vibrant presence filled the feeds of friends and acquaintances alike, laughter and life captured in pixelated moments. Yet, lurking in those familiar faces were threads that tied deeper, including well-meaning shadows of jealousy and envy. Tapping into the wider web Emily had woven brought her to a seemingly innocuous digital breadcrumb left on a picture celebrating Emily's cheerleading victory from months before. A user named Gia Love had expressed a begrudging admiration. "Too bad you're so popular. It must suck for the rest." It was an odd comment that had stirred her thoughts. There was something unsettlingly petty about it, a hint of envy cloaked in sarcasm. Sarah made a mental note, hoping to connect the dots that wouldn't seem to line up at first glance. Yet as the days dragged on with no new leads, the frustration morphed into despair within the investigative team. The boundaries of trust were strained as anxiety rippled through the community. Everyone questioning their neighbor, their friend. The past feels unshakable. Yet, in the face of uncertainty, the dream of justice for Emily seemed a distant flicker, dwarfed by shadows that loomed ever larger in the hearts of her family and friends. Each dead end seemed to whisper the same cruel truth. The killer was still out there, hidden in plain sight among them. A break in the case. As the air turned crisp and November approached, A renewed sense of urgency pulsed within the Willow Creek Police Department. Detective Sarah Mitchell, buoyed by the flicker of hope ignited by her digital discovery, pored over social media posts related to Emily's life and connections. The elusive geolove comment nestled in her mind, urging her to dig deeper into the online tapestry of young lives entwined with tragedy. Geolove belonged to a user by the name of Michael Hayes, a former classmate who had mysteriously dropped out of school just weeks before Emily's murder. As Sarah pieced together the strands of Michael's past, she uncovered a pattern of troubling behavior that threw a grim shadow over her findings. She had a history of bullying, feelings of inadequacy, and jealous outbursts triggered by peer dynamics. The surprise came when Sarah learned of a class project that had gone awry between Michael and Emily during their sophomore year. They had been partnered for a presentation where their creative energies clashed, resulting in a tense fallout that had marred their brief camaraderie. In social circles that favored popularity, Michael's perception of Emily had warped into resentment, a notable seed of envy that could have festered over time. With a shaky resolve, Sarah sought to engage with her investigation in a fresh way, reaching out to friends and former classmates who may have insight into Michael's behavior during the months leading to the tragedy. The response was quick. On the same day that Sarah conducted interviews, one of Emily's cheerleading teammates mentioned feeling uncomfortable around Michael, recalling moments when he lingered too long. His eyes filled with something more than admiration. The final breakthrough arrived unexpectedly. Sarah received a call from a local store owner who had surveillance footage from the night of Emily's murder. He had noted an unusual figure meandering near the Decker home, lingering longer than the rest of the celebrants. The footage, tinged with grainy darkness, revealed a male figure who seemed apprehensive, glancing nervously at both the street and the trees before disappearing into the shadows. With a sense of hope igniting her weary spirit, Sarah rushed to collect the footage. The pieces were falling into alignment, and as the hours stretched through the evening, she couldn't shake the feeling that they were on the cusp of unearthing the truth buried within their charming town. The specter of dread hovered still, but for the first time in weeks, a tangible thread connected them to a the intrusion of hope in a community irreparably marked by loss. Justice for Emily was drawing closer, invigorating an investigation that had perched precariously on the edge of despair. The suspect, with a flicker of determination burning in her chest, Detective Sarah Mitchell settled down in front of the grainy surveillance footage, the muted colors swirling like dark clouds. The figure stealing through the shadows was indistinct but undoubtedly male. Sarah leaned in, focusing intently, heart pounding in her chest as she observed the movements, the way the person turned, tensing almost in rhythm to their heartbeat. Just beyond the periphery, a familiar shape caught her eye. The outline of a jacket she had seen Michael Hayes wear during high school. It was a dark, oversized hoodie, often paired with baggy jeans disguising the slim frame of a boy whose presence felt increasingly standoffish to his peers. The pieces began constructing a vivid picture, but she needed to confirm the face and the connection to Emily's last moment. Intent on following this lead, Sarah paired the footage with her notes, weaving Michael's timeline into the emerging narrative. With each passing moment, her suspicions morphed into resolves. Emotionally wrapped in the transcendence of her personal experience with bullying and the darkness of jealousy, Sarah felt the impending urgency. Michael's name quickly emerged as a pivotal blocking piece she needed to be questioned. That evening, the surrounding atmosphere churned with resolved energy as the police department staked out Michael's last known address, a small neglected apartment complex on the downtown fringes. Sarah, accompanied by colleagues, prepared for what lay ahead. Fear clutched at her gut, reminders whispering. The truth they sought could bind them or lead them into a snare. When they arrived at the location, the air felt taut with anticipation. Sarah knocked sharply at the door, adrenaline coursing through her veins. Moments later, it creaked open to reveal Michael's pallid figure, eyes darting nervously as he recognized the badges. Michael Hayes? Me? Sarah introduced herself carefully, gauging his reaction. Yeah, his voice cracked amid the silence. Brow was knitted in confusion. May I ask you a few questions about Emily Decker? She noted the way his expression shifted, the flicker of a deer caught in headlights. Michael stepped back involuntarily, the doorway closing a fraction. Yet Sarah pressed on, determination welling through her, ready to navigate the labyrinth of emotions that gripped their interaction. Her instinct screamed caution, but it was equally potent in urging her forward. Please, Mike, it's important we discuss the night of her party. As he hesitated, Sarah's instincts led a different kind of charge into the room, a mixture of compassion and urgency intertwined with the bare necessity of seeking justice for Emily. The conversation began to flow cautiously, but an unspoken tension hovered between them, weaving questions and answers through the remnants of a life entwined with grief, a journey of unraveling secrets that stood between innocence lost and justice awaiting. The trial. Months passed in a blur after Michael Hayes was arrested for Emily Decker's murder, and with each ticking day, the community of Willow Creek seemed to oscillate between eager anticipation and smothering anger. The air tightened as the trial loomed on the horizon, casting a long shadow over the town like the encroaching winter chill. On the day the courtroom doors swung open, eyes filled with tears met faces hard with resolve. Friends and family of Emily occupied one side, their hearts heavy, woven into a tapestry of grief brought to light in a single, seemingly endless moment. They sought justice, desperate to remind themselves of the vibrant spirit they had lost, fueled by memories that danced like flickering shadows in their minds. Michael sat at the defendant's table, looking smaller somehow, a haunted gaze that conveyed a mixture of confusion and fear. His defense attorney, a seasoned advocate, presented wildly implausible arguments, suggesting that Emily had invited trouble upon herself, framing Michael as a scapegoat, an easy target amidst collective grief. The words fell into the courtroom air like leaden stones, eliciting gasps from the audience. Yet the prosecution, led by Sarah's diligent efforts, pieced together a potent narrative. They outlined Michael's history of bullying and jealousy, presenting online exchanges that hinted at bitterness beneath an innocent facade. The turning point came when they introduced the surveillance footage of Michael's unmistakable figure slipping through the shadows of the Decker home, culminating in a haunting reconstruction of the night. Witnesses provided gut-wrenching testimonies. Emily's friends spoke of her kindness, recounting the betrayal of losing their bright star in an act of senseless violence. In a powerful moment, Emily's mother, Lorraine, took the stand, her face etched with both sorrow and valor. She deserved more than this, more than the pain that night brought, Lorraine proclaimed, her voice quaking yet strong, echoing through the court. She was a daughter, a friend, a light in so many lives. As days unfolded, It felt as if time stood still, syncopating the heartbeat of the community, tightly woven with each pivotal moment of testimony. The gavel of the presiding judge echoed louder than the symphony of emotions, ringing through the room in a pulse that conveyed both anxiety and anticipation. Finally, after days of deliberation, the jury emerged, faces somber as they took their seats. The murmurs faded like whispers in the wind, and the tension reached a palpable crescendo. The foreperson stood, the deliberations hanging heavily in the air, and declared, "We find the defendant Michael Hayes guilty of second-degree murder." A wave of emotion surged through the courtroom. Lorraine buried her head in her hands, tears spilling over, the release of tension giving way to a cathartic ache. Others embraced one another, many loosing quiet sobs to match the symphony of joy and grief that echoed throughout the room. The verdict felt like a long-awaited embrace of justice, yet it also underscored an irrevocable sorrow that would forever linger in Willow Creek. As Michael was taken away, the shadows that had loomed over the town began to lift, even as the consequences of that night would ripple through the community like a fading echo, forever marked by loss, a somber reminder of the fragility of life and the enduring strength of love. The aftermath. In the wake of the trial, Willow Creek was left to sift through the emotional debris of the tragedy that had settled over the town. The gavel's finality had not woven as tightly into the fabric of their lives as they had hoped. The streets, once filled with laughter and cheer, now bore the heavy imprint of loss, a stark reminder that innocence had been irreparably fractured. Emily Decker's memory echoed in the hearts of those who loved her, her vibrant spirit transformed into a beacon of resilience for the community. Lorraine, now armed with both grief and purpose, spearheaded memorial activities, planting trees in local parks, and initiating scholarship funds in Emily's name. It was a small but profound way to ensure her daughter's legacy would flourish, fueling hope and passion for younger generations who would not know the little girl lost to brutality. Yet, beneath the layers of healing lay the raw wounds of unresolved trauma. Friends gathered at coffee shops, a shared glance often speaking volumes as they navigated the loss of their childhood friend. Some sought therapy, attempting to dismantle the chaos that had overturned the carefully constructed narratives of safety and familiarity. Emotions never fully unraveled formed a tangled web within their hearts, each thread reminding them of what had been stolen. In the months that followed, the town adopted new rhythms, evolving in a different direction as the seasons turned. Neighborhood watch programs sprouted like wildflowers in reaction to the shadow of violence that had crept into their homes. Residents sought reassurance in one another, the bonds forged in darkness. New friendships blossomed, and a vigil tradition took shape, in an annual gathering where candles were lit in honor of lost loved ones, creating a sea of flickering light against the encroaching dark. As the anniversary of Emily's death approached, Lorraine found herself standing in the park, surveying the sprawling, sun-drenched field where the saplings bore witness to the promise of renewal. Children played in the distance, laughter threading through the heavy air that held the weight of remembrance. It was bittersweet. While joy and pain intertwined in a delicate balance, the absence of her daughter lingered longer than any dream could hold. Nonetheless, Lorraine resolved to tell Emily's story in every weary heartbeat. She organized an art exhibit at the local community center, showcasing Emily's artwork, a testament to her creativity and passion. As the townsfolk wandered through, emotions ebbed and flowed, each painting unlocking memories, laughter mingling with tears. That night, As the sun dipped below the horizon, the community gathered beneath a blanket of stars, reminiscent of the gathering that had once celebrated Emily's sweet secret. The flickering lights of candles captured the profound spirit of their beloved friend, reflecting both love and loss in a single breath. Each flame bore witness, offering solace to tender souls longing for the warmth of cherished memories. In the midst of it all, a sense of peace began to take root. It would never erase the suffering they endured. However, a collective strength emerged from the darkness. Emily Decker became more than a victim. She became the light illuminating the path of resilience, uniting a community that had faced unimaginable grief forever, changed yet forever connected by love, memory, and the promise of a brighter tomorrow. Reflection. As the years rolled on, Willow Creek found itself wrapped in the gentle embrace of Healinga, slow unearthing of confidence and community strength. Life resumed its rhythm, marked by laughter echoing down the streets and children playing in parks that now bore Emily's name. Yet amid the tapestry of hopeful tomorrows, the town never forgot the shadow that had once darkened their path, marked indelibly by loss and lessons learned. Lorraine often sat quietly on her porch in the evenings, contemplating the impact of that fateful night. She held tightly to the notion that tragedy could cultivate transformation, and as the seasons shifted, she continued to share Emily's. The narrative held both spirit and sorrow, urging others to recognize the fragility of life and the necessity of cherishing every fleeting moment. During those quiet moments of reflection, Lorraine often found solace in her memories of Emily's way. She brought light into the lives of those around her, and the laughter that rang like music in the air. Through the darkness of grief, a profound truth emerged. Love, once ignited, could never truly be extinguished, though the pain of losing her daughter lingered. Lorraine felt the undercurrent of strength flowing through the community. In remembrance, she hosted annual gatherings at the park where Emily once played, celebrating not just a life lost, but a spirit that would never fade. Friends united every year because in remembering Emily, they embraced the power of connection and community. Those gestures, the small lights in moments of despair, allowed a glimmer of hope to peep through the cracks of sorrow. No one could erase the past, but Lorraine discovered that sharing Emily's storied beauty, the laughter, the enduring love became a testament to resilience. It reminded them all that even in darkness, the light of compassion and connection could guide the way toward healing, illuminating the paths ahead.